strong words today from the Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta, declaring unequivocally that the deadly attack on the United States Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans in Libya was, in his words, clearly the work of terrorists.
The reason I think it pretty clearly it was a terrorist attack is because a group of terrorists obviously conducted that attack on the consulate and against our individuals. What terrorists were involved, I think, still remains to be determined by the investigation. But it clearly was a group of terrorists who conducted that attack against that facility.
A senior U.S. official tells CNN intelligence suggested within 24 hours after the attack, within 24 hours, extremists either affiliated or inspired by al-Qaeda may have been behind it. CNN senior international correspondent Arwa Damon got extraordinary access to what could be considered a breeding ground for extremism inside the country.
It may look like a sleepy beachfront town, but Darna has a reputation as a home to Islamist extremist militia, some of them with links to al-Qaeda. These militia had allegedly left their bases, but continue to haunt the streets. We tried to get access to one of these bases, saw a handful of gunmen there, and were told to leave.
A pickup truck just swerved in front of us, forcing us to stop. 3 men got out, wanting to talk, I'm assuming, about what it is that we're doing here. And they seemed quite agitated.
One of our escorts was warned that, quote, since the extremists no longer control security, they couldn't ensure ours. They were advising us to leave town. In the market, most eyed us warily. Residents say a general strike and demonstrations forced the militias to abandon their bases. But this man tells us it's far from clear they will fade away.
While we were filming here, a man came over to speak to us, but he was too afraid to go on camera. He wanted us to know that the majority of people here are sick and tired of being in the spotlight because the minority, he says, is affiliated with al-Qaeda.
Hussein Massoudi, a local journalist, says radical Islam has always had a place in Darna. Men from here fought in Afghanistan, and estimates are that more than 50 traveled to Iraq to become suicide bombers, the highest number from any town outside of Iraq. The city and its surroundings were sympathetic to these groups because they had a common enemy, which was Gaddafi, Massoudi explains. They were all trying to bring down Gaddafi. From the onset of the revolution, it was the extremists that provided security. After liberation was announced, says Massoudi, there was increasing pressure on al-Qaeda in Yemen and other places. Coming to Libya was easy. Among those setting up camp, Sufyan bin Gumu, once bin Laden's driver and held in Guantanamo Bay for 5 years, established the Ansar al-Sharia unit in Darna. And Abdel Basit Azzouz, alleged to have been sent here by al-Qaeda's leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. According to security sources, these Islamist militia have a common goal: weakening and then infiltrating Libya's security apparatus. In Benghazi, there have been more than a dozen assassinations of former military officers. Sources tell CNN that many of them were reportedly on an Islamist hit list to eliminate qualified individuals that could pose a threat. Colonel Hamid Belkhair of the Libyan army was recently kidnapped. He says he doesn't know by whom or exactly why. He got a call from a man who spoke as if he knew him and said he had urgent information to pass on. Outside his home, in broad daylight, 2 masked men forced him into their car. When I got into the car, they put a black hood on my head and began saying things like, "You're going to see," threatening me, he tells us. Later, he says he was forced to his knees and told to repent and renew his faith in Islam. He thought he was going to die when the phone rang. I could hear someone say, "He's alive. We haven't killed him yet." You can hear his voice, he recalls. And then he was free. The influence of these radical groups has emerged in the capital. Last month, they destroyed Sufi shrines, including this one, right in the heart of Tripoli, a move typical of Salafist intolerance of other branches of Islam.
As the shrine was being demolished, eyewitnesses say that Libyan security forces facilitated the act by blocking off the street. The Ministry of Interior says that it's investigating these charges, while also acknowledging that it cannot go after these groups, claiming it wants to avoid shedding Libyan blood.
And that is the problem. The government's currently not strong enough to face down these groups, and they always thrive amid weakness. Arwa Damon, CNN, Tripoli.
This just coming in at CNN. The United States is now removing more staff from its embassy in Tripoli, Libya, for security reasons. According to a senior State Department official, we're told the move is intended to be temporary. The staff could return as soon as next week, but we shall see. The U.S. removing staff, more members of the diplomatic community from the U.S. Embassy in Tripoli. So what about the investigation into the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya? Our national security contributor, Fran Townsend, and our intelligence correspondent, Suzanne Kelly, they are getting new details for us. Stand by. We'll go to them when we come back.